Welcome, everybody. This is going to be the Metal Detectorists podcast. My panel and I tonight, we're going to go through some questions. Everybody's going to introduce themselves and their channel, and then we're going to have a conversation starting at beginning stages of metal detecting. We're going to work our way all the way up through intermediate stuff, how we find permissions, stuff that we do there, and hopefully we'll provide a good time for you. First one on my list today, I'm going to start with the guys from We Dig It, and they're going to introduce themselves and tell you what their YouTube channel is and how they got into the hobby.
All right, so my name is Gene.
I'm Gene.
I'm Steph.
And our channel name is We Dig It. So we started metal detecting late 2019, and that was kind of right before the pandemic started. And it started, of course, in March, and that's when our channel started, was March of 2020. We just had more time on our hands, and we were already doing some metal detecting. So we said we wanted to kind of show my parents. They don't live where I live, my in-laws, and so we said, let's start uploading things to YouTube so they can watch it. And then other people started commenting on our videos, and we realized, wow, a lot of people watch these things, and there's a big community out there. So that's kind of how it happened for us. We accidentally backed into the community there. So,
all right, guys. Well, thanks a bunch. I mean, and your story is very identical to mine, which I'll get into once we get through here. But the rest of the panel tonight consists of one YouTube channel. I've got two guys from the PA Relic Hunters. I'm going to start with Mr. Jerry right now, and he's going to fill us in a little bit about him and introduce himself and his channel.
Well, so my name is Jerry. I'm with the PA Relic Hunters. I actually started a channel before I met the PA Relic Hunters on my own. I ended up getting burnt out because, as these guys know, it's a lot of work. Getting out there and detecting every day that you can, amongst having to go to work and deal with the family, and then coming home and spending time on the computer editing these videos. I got burnt out pretty good. So, but in the middle of things, like he said, it's such a large community, and I was actually talking to Rich from the PA Relic Hunters in the meantime, and he noticed that I wasn't putting out as many videos. So he says, "Hey, you want to get together and go do some hunts?" And we started off with some woods hunts and things like that, and then got to meet Dave and Sean, and kind of hit it off with them guys. And I was with them so much, they just offered for me to join. But how I really got into metal detecting was, I always found it fascinating. I do like the research. I like looking at old maps and things like that. So it just happened that down over the hill from my house, on my neighbor's property that I was friends with, there was a dot on an old 1860s map, and there was no dot there in 1908 because I had two different maps. So I went down there and I got my little Garrett 400 and started looking for iron in the ground, and it turned out to be one of the most amazing sites I've ever been on. And ever since then, I was hooked.
Yeah, absolutely. That just kind of reminds me of the first time somebody walks into a casino and they put $5 in a slot machine and hit a couple hundred. That you're going to be stuck for life at that point.
Yeah, I am addicted.
Yeah. Hey, and that's a good thing. Basically, I think we all fall into that same boat. But before we go any further, let's grab the other PA Relic Hunter that's in here, Mr. Rich.
All right, what's up, guys? I am Rich. I am one of the three original PA Relic Hunters, and then we absorbed Jerry, which I was just listening to. So it was one of those things, is like I could tell that he was burning out. So it was like kind of, we needed another person, I think, and we needed his skills and his avenue down in our channel. So that's why we ended up getting him in there, and he was really more than happy to come hang out with us, and now he's a true part of the channel, which is awesome. And I made him leave already. Look at that. Anyways, no, so we started our channel. Sean originally started the channel in actually almost the same time as Eugene. Our actually first video went out April 20. Actually, today's our anniversary. 1 year anniversary today, or 3 year anniversary today.
that's cool.
I just looked at my time or calendar there. So anyways, yeah, so we started April 25th was our very first video. It was just Sean, and then we ended up starting to I met up with him like after that. He put his first video out, and then it was just me and him. And then 2 weeks later, or like probably 2 videos later, we ended up having Dave come on as for a hunt, and then we ended up making the first 3, and we kept it for about 2 years. And then we got Jerry in on the beginning of the 3rd year of us, maybe a little over. It's been about a year and a little over a year and a half, right, Jerry? It's about that. Yeah. So anyways, I mean, the channel's been fun. It's been great. It's growing like crazy, which, is crazy to see. And, we love doing it. And that's the biggest one is we didn't even care if we did anything other than just make videos, because we kind of enjoyed it and putting the history out there for other people to see. I mean, when we were digging, the enthusiasm that you have by digging something is just so great that I was wanting other people to for us to have other people see it is what was fun about it too. So getting people to see the adventures that we go on is half the battle. And that's just, that makes it so much better. It's not me going out on a weekend where I just go by myself, which I have done lately, getting an hour out. I'll go out an hour. I don't even film sometimes because it's not as exciting when you're filming by yourself. So it's hard. So when you're with the guys, it's a lot better. So
yeah, those are all great points. And since we're targeting new audiences with this little podcast here, my name is Shane. My channel is called Ohio River History. If you found this podcast, you probably know that already. The main thing that I like to say is that I have ambition, and I have ambition for all aspects of this. I want to be excited for myself. I want to teach. I want to learn from everybody else. And I want to provide a good atmosphere for the next person in the hobby, which is where we're going to kind of focus today. We're going to focus on basically somebody that may be brand new that wants to get into this hobby, what kind of obstacles they're going to have to overcome, how they're going to go about it. And that's what this episode of this podcast is going to be about. Also, I run 2 websites, mondaydigs.com, #MondayDigs on YouTube is mine and Gene's and a few other guys is where we show our videos in succession just to let everybody see it. And then I believe the PA Relic Hunters drop their videos on a Friday or a Saturday. Is that correct?
Saturday.
Yeah, I have a hard time keeping up with it. But so we've got them here together today because they work as a group. The Monday Digs people, we work as a group. And then we're just gonna touch on a little bit today on the things that we've learned and come across. I'm gonna start with Rich on my first question here today for this group. Everybody's been kind of introduced, and Rich, I want to know, you're going out metal detecting on a Saturday. You get ready to leave the house. What's in your backpack? Detector. You start with everything you got to make sure you have when you leave the house that day.
That's funny because sometimes I always forget something. So I always depend on everyone else to bring something extra. So besides that, I mean, the backpack is literally my belt with my pinpointer, my little hand digger. I bring my shovel. I have a little checklist that goes off in my head. I bring the detector. Depending on where I'm going, I might bring a second coil. It's in the backpack though. It's depending on where we're going. There might be some toilet paper, a lot of snacks. Normally I'll bring sandwiches. My wife is awesome. She makes sandwiches, and a lot of times I end up having more than one. So I whoever didn't bring lunch, I always bring something extra for someone at least. It's normally Dave, but just saying, Dave normally is the one that gets the sandwich most of the time. So, and then a lot of water. I probably bring 6-7 bottles of water with me. Do I drink that much? No, because I'm kind of in the mood of doing it, but I always have one with me. I just don't always drink that many bottles. So I don't really bring a flashlight. There's really not much more that I bring besides just maybe a little water bottle to spray something off if I wanted to. So I guess minimal for us because I don't want to have to carry it. And, my phone's already attached to me, which is what we use for filming anyways. So no tripods, nothing like that. So yeah, that's pretty much in my backpack. That's what I would bring.
I got you. Jerry, what do you got, man?
I'm like Rich. I usually rely on everybody else to bring. So I mean, the thing with metal detecting is you got to have your pinpointer, you got to have your metal detector, and you got to have a shovel. So as long as I got those three things, I'm good to go. But, I'll usually stop at the gas station. If we're woods hunting, we'll take some water back in or some food, some snacks. I usually forget mine. Sean is the one that brings all the food, typically, and Rich as well. I've eaten many of his wife's sandwiches out in the woods. What else? We usually have a finds box that we'll put our better stuff in. My pouch will have a junk pouch, and then it'll have a pouch with my finds box in. So if we're finding coins or relics or anything like that, we'll put it in there. And our junk pouch is, typically, if we're in the woods on an old site, all of our iron goes in there. We do a lot of iron. So we'll throw the iron in there. And then at the end of the day, we go back to the truck and we have a bucket and pitch all of our stuff in. And actually, Rich, he'll actually, once a month or once every couple of months, he'll actually separate out all the copper and things and take it in and actually get a nice $30-$40 worth of, money for the
It's actually
copper.
more than that.
Right.
Not to interrupt, but it's like sometimes, like we'll do it probably twice a year, and it's probably about 120 each time.
Wow.
So
it's not bad.
and
We
then,
dig too much.
and
That's
then-
what it is.
And then Rich will purchase silver for everybody, which is nice.
I do. I'll go up and get like silver rounds and stuff, and I'll get them all for the guys, and I'll be like, hey, this is what we got. So we ended up getting each got a silver round. There was a time that we got just constitutional silver for it, just because that way it was something, because
They
you're
got like 10 rosies or something like that.
Yeah. So
That's
I mean, it was
pretty good idea.
Yeah, I mean, technically it's free, and that way you can put it in your collection, just keep it away, and can't buy gold,
But
just buy silver.
As long as I got those three things, I'm good to go.
All right,
and an extra 9-volt battery, which Sean always brings.
I was gonna when I got to my turn, I was gonna talk about the extra batteries, but Gene, you take the boys out with you a lot of times. There's more than one of you. You got to think for a whole family. What's your backpack look like when you leave the house?
I mean, I'm just a lot like these guys with the items that they listed. Some things that they didn't that we take sometimes. Seth isn't exactly a metal detectorist, so he just has a bag with him. He's a sight finder, so he's picked up coins, rings, bracelets, nice pieces of pottery. He's found some just very interesting things just looking. So Seth always usually just grabs a bag. I also have a gimbal that I have. It has a small tripod on the bottom, so I can do some of that kind of, put my phone in that, and that's probably one thing that I have that you guys didn't mention.
I know for me, of course, you got the detector, the pinpointer, the shovel. I normally don't use a hand digger because when we go relic hunting, we're normally in a huge field, and the farmer doesn't really care. So we have a cattle farm we go to, so we just dig. We fill it back in, but we don't really care about the grass.
I bring the hand. I always have a hand digger just because in the woods you get roots. So sometimes you have to get around those roots, and you need a smaller shovel to get around it. So that's mainly why I have it. So.
And then if we go to the beach, of course, our scoop, have to have the scoop.
Beach is different, even in attire for me.
Yep.
I'll wear shorts, a t-shirt, my scoop, detector, pinpointer, but I don't even really use my pinpointer as much.
No. And then I would say for us, I mean, we always usually take a football or a Frisbee or something like that, So when it's break time, there's something to do. Today when we were at the beach, we were throwing football for a while, and Seth and Cole took bocce ball, so they were playing bocce ball, which is, so we take some extra stuff like that too, but not everybody's going to take that into the woods or at the beach with them.
And toilet paper, yes.
Toilet paper.
Man, I don't know what it is, guys, but it's like my happy place, and my body says, all right, you're at home, let's go. Every single time. Come on.
You don't want to be stuck without it.
No, that could be the worst part. I'm going to just go ahead and go off of what everybody else said. I agree with most everybody else's lists. The one thing I do have a question about is you're on an island in St. Croix. Is bug spray a good thing for you out there? Do sand fleas bite, or what do you have to deal with mosquitoes? What's all on the island of St. Croix?
On the beach, it gets bad when the sun's setting. When the sun is hot, there's almost no insects because it's too hot. So whenever the sun is setting or goes down, the bugs get pretty bad. But normally we just leave because, there's just swarms. You kind of can't get away from them. But if we're in a farm, a lot of times, again, during the day, it's not really that bad because it's just so hot. They can't really
but I don't know why. But bugs don't bother me normally anyway, so I don't get eaten up by mosquitoes and that sort of thing. So we usually don't have bug spray, but it would be a very good thing to take. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that almost a necessity if you're going to be like he said at the beach at sundown or anything like that. I mean, those little sand flea things are pretty bad.
Yeah, I shopped yesterday, and I since my last woods hunt, I noticed that I started having a few bites, whether they be chiggers or whatnot. So I bought my 2 cans of DEET basically for the whole summer. I'll keep that and use that. Also, the extra 9-volt batteries are a must. Also, I have 2 cameras in case one goes bad, and I have my phone. So GoPro batteries. I have a really nice camera that if something really calls for it, I'll break out and use. It's in my backpack. Always take both coils. You never know when you're going to need the small coil and a patch of iron. And so it's not too hard to carry. Beyond that,
not in the backpack, but in the truck, we always throw an extra detector and shovel as well. So we don't carry it with us, but it's there just in case.
Yeah, I was going to say that I don't usually take my backup detector, but here lately, when we get into the summertime months, a lot of times when you find a permission, a really nice thing to have is another detector with you in case a property owner or a homeowner would like to dig with you, and you've got something that's pretty simple to use. That's not a bad idea, especially if you're looking to gain some really nice permissions, but I don't want to get too far into that part of the topic. But it's really nice to have toilet paper because you never know where you're going to end up. Plenty of water, snacks. Yeah, those are all good necessities. I'm really big on the batteries. I like to make sure I have enough juice to last the whole day on everything. When you first started metal detecting, and just look at your day as a beginner, what was your first idea in your head where you wanted to metal detect, and talk about how that evolved as you progressed in the hobby?
As metal detectorists, we buy our first metal detector. I think we all start in our front yard. If you've never metal detected before, there's something like, okay, I wonder what is out there. And getting out into your front yard and just kind of finding what you lost a couple years ago, or maybe what the previous homeowner lost. Or if you're in an old house, maybe, what somebody lost 100 years ago. But that's where getting to know your machine really starts. Learning what different things sound like. And then once you get a good idea of, okay, this sounds kind of like a coin. One game I used to play with myself is, after I've dug a bunch of things, I tried to guess what it was before I dig it with the VDI. The VDI is the number that pops up on the metal detector for those who don't know. Certain coins will have a certain VDI. Certain coins will sound a certain way, whether it's silver or it's copper or whatever. But when you're out in your front yard and you're learning those things, then that's where it starts to be like, okay, now where can I go? Typically, parks are another good place to go. But for me, it was always about trying to find something really old. I did like to find some things in a park, but for me, it was something getting back into the woods, finding the old home sites, and finding something really old. And like I said earlier, my very first home site that I've ever found was tremendous. I mean, I was finding Indian head pennies, and I found a trime there. It was amazing. And like I said before, I was hooked ever since. But it started in my front yard, and it's evolved into the forest.
Like the forest. Well, a lot of people do like the woods digging, especially because the cellar holes in the woods are probably like the last frontier, right? Because everybody, if there's a house there, everybody's knocked on the door, so to speak. Most of those properties have been hit, so getting out into the woods where you can't necessarily see a home site is probably a good thing. Gene, you guys are on an island. I'm sure your first inclination was the beach.
Yeah. So we, when we were moving here, we got a detector. I bought one on Amazon when we moved here, because if you're on an island, you've got beaches, you have to metal detect. It's kind of a thing, right? And so I just bought a metal detector, a cheap one off of Amazon, and I was at the beach a couple times with it, didn't understand it, and then it rained. If I could tell anybody that was getting into the hobby, I would recommend making sure that it's weatherproof at least, because when it rained on it, that cheap detector was no good anymore. So then I had some Amazon gift cards, and I said, you know what? It's got to be waterproof. So went on and bought the AT Max. Had no clue what I was doing. Bought the AT Max, got it, and that thing is super loud. And we didn't understand it. And we put it in the closet for like 2 years. And then these two right here were late at night, one night, YouTube suggested a video for us. It was a tutorial on how to use that machine. The guy, he's on YouTube still, his name's Ed Huffman. He said, if it's an 81, it's a dime every time. And they kind of looked at each other. They went out into the front yard. They swung until they found an 81. They dug it up and it was a dime. And that was it, man. We're hooked too, you know. It's doesn't get any better than that. Kind of when you get it figured out, when you understand it, you're like, oh, because before that it's just beeps and squeals, and I didn't know, and I was digging sometimes and couldn't find stuff. Yeah, once I got it figured out, that was it. And then like Jerry, I really enjoy digging up the old stuff, man. I really love it.
You know, back to location, the beach is just so tricky. It really is. You have to have the right detector. You have to have the right equipment. You know, if you have a detector that's not multi-frequency, I mean, you can only really do the dry sand. And up there, things sink so fast, you're not really going to find much. You have to have a multi-frequency detector, which is not cheap. You got to have a scoop, you know, not cheap. So all the stuff we were doing without, and we would never find stuff at the beach, so we kind of give up on that. But now that we have all that stuff, and even the location itself, like different beaches are good at different times of the year, and different beaches have more stuff and have less traffic, and some of them have more traffic and less stuff. And so you just have to, you know, it's a whole thing with location at the beach.
Know
The
where
beach
you're
is
going.
a different beast. You know, if you're going to a farm, it's the same every time, except for maybe if it rained or not, you know. But the beach,
soil's different everywhere.
yeah. But
Yeah,
the beach-
so yeah, that was, you know, that's another thing that, you know, I don't think people realize that, and I didn't realize that the sand was different, you know, in different beaches, different times of the year. Or, you know, I didn't understand that. I just figured the sand was like the dirt because I don't get to dig in the sand that often. Rich, where was your first experience digging, and how did you evolve from there?
So, I mean, my dad, when I was younger, I was probably 9 or 10, he bought like a Radio Shack one. It was just a cheap, but I had it all the way until like 4 years ago, literally. Like,
Wow.
I had it. It was never used for a long period of time, but I used it every so often. We did his house. And then I think it was a year before COVID hit. I actually was just like, man, I really want to get into this hobby. I was watching actually the Hoover Boys, and it was just getting you more into it, wanting to get back out. I'm like, God, if I just had a better detector, I would be more interested in it and actually wanting to do it more. Because I knew that I was having a hard time, even with the one I had, just the signals were like, it didn't matter what I was digging. I knew it was going to be something, but it was just, you couldn't tell what it was. So with a cheaper detector, it's a lot harder to figure out what you're actually digging. So then it was actually, my first machine was the AT Max. I went and I convinced my wife. I said, you know, this would be a great hobby for me and my daughter at the time. So I said, what if I get her like a cheaper one and I get a better one? And then that way we can go out and have, like, you know, time together. And she's like, okay. So we ended up being able to, that was my way of getting it, in a way, like kind of cheating the system in a way. But anyways, besides that, but it turned into so much more, because within that year of doing it, I was like practicing in my yard. I practiced in the neighbor's yard, and I was finding silver, and like just learning the machine was just insane. Like, it was fun. Like, I was enjoying trying to learn the numbers and everything like that. And then the whole YouTube thing started, and that was when I was like, wow, I'm ready to go. Like, let's do it. I was still very amateur even at the beginning, but it was so much fun. And the places I was trying to find, I mean, I didn't know where to start. I wasn't a door like knocking on someone's house. I mean, I did my neighbors' yards, but it was a lot easier just to, hey, is it okay if I, metal detect in their yard? And they're like, yeah, cool. I didn't really even want to go to parks, because I knew that was only going to be like modern change and stuff like that. So it was like really hard. I didn't know what to do. Luckily, meeting up with these guys was a big difference, because then it got me out, and then I became like the person that talks to people at the doors too. So it really takes you out of your shell. Jerry introduced us to woods hunts, which was totally a different beast than doing yards all the time. We don't do too many parks because, well, once again, it's just not our cup of tea. A lot of people it is, and they love it, and for us, it's just not. Like, we just don't do parks that often, just because, unless there was history there and we knew where it was in that area, then we would. But like a general park to go to a tot lot or anything like that, that wasn't our thing to do. Which I'm not against it. It's great for other people to learn, but for us, it wasn't the same thing. And that's where it progressed into going into yards, then woods. But I'm addicted no matter what. We've only done beach hunting once, so we didn't do bad. I mean, got a couple pieces of jewelry, and that was a fun one because like we ended up all being there at the same time without even knowing we were going to be there. Actually, it was kind of funny.
That's awesome.
So
Yeah, that's really cool. My first experience with a metal detector, I was 8 years old, and I traveled with my stepdad and my stepbrother, and they would go play competitive baseball at different parks. I was sitting there watching the game, bored out of my mind. I'd spent all my concession money for the day, and we still had a couple hours to go. And I looked over, and quote unquote the weird guy in the park, there was a guy standing down there on the right field line, away from everybody, swinging this big ugly contraption. And being an 9-year-old kid, I'm like, hey, what's this guy doing? Because I didn't want to watch baseball anymore. That's all I ever did was watch baseball. I went down there and I got within about 15 foot of him, and I just sit there and I sit down and I watched him, and he'd dig up a dime or a nickel or a quarter, and I asked him how much money he had found, and he said, well, I found about $3 or $4 today. And I'm sitting here thinking, wow, $3 or $4, and I can get more candy and soda at the concession stand while I sit here and be bored over the weekend. So I took that home and went and talked to my mom. She went up to Radio Shack and got me something that I think it was called an Eagle Eye, and it had the sensitivity dial on it, and it was white with a little bullseye hole in the center. And I used to crawl around underneath the bleachers at these ballparks and scratch change out of the ground. I learned you could set the sensitivity real low, and you could just kind of go through there, and whenever it made a noise, you take your little shovel and scratch the ground. Well, that's how I got hooked. I did it for a few years that way until I started playing baseball. And then after I started playing baseball, it went away. I playing competitive baseball, becoming a teenager, you're not playing in the dirt anymore in that aspect. And I was 41 years old, 40 years old. And, my kids were growing up, and my wife was like, you got to get out of the house. You got to find something else to do. You're driving me nuts. I picked up a metal detector again, and it was something that I've always wanted to do. And I found somebody that dug. I'm one of those people that I don't like asking anybody for anything. I've never been that person. I've always found a way to survive on my own. So I had a hard time with permissions, but I don't mind helping people. And this guy, Kurt, that I dig with, is a lot like Shane Kubat. He has very little eyesight left. Well, I go pick him up, and he calls himself the Silver-Tongued Devil because he can convince people to let him do anything. So I took him around for a few years, and then my mother became interested, and she was like, and instead of showing her, I borrowed Nick's GoPro, and then I started making videos. And like Gene said, all of a sudden other people started commenting on your videos when you upload them, and you don't even expect it. And so there, you get, I started out digging in parks. I didn't really have very good spot at home to dig. Parks was really where I started, and Kurt turned me on to a whole new world of hey, this is where you can find old stuff. And then I was a history nerd to begin with, and therefore it all just clicked, one thing after the other. Once I learned that I could do research and then go out and find something off my research and make my weekend that much better, I was completely sold. And I've been a complete animal and an addict ever since, and I couldn't be happier with it. So that's basically how that all worked out, and pretty proud of it. Everything that I do, I do it with pride. So it's a lot of fun.
One thing that I wanted, before we get past it, by the way, anything worth doing is worth doing right. you know, the unexpected benefit from this hobby, you know, drawing our family closer together. You know, you said, you know, you convinced your wife by saying, "Hey, my daughter and I." But I'm serious. For anybody that's starting out in this hobby, that is part of it. Like, get your kids interested, get them off of the, you know, tablets and all that stuff, man. And it's just good, and introduce them to history and, you know, the curiosity. It's just, I see so many positives out of it, and that's one of them.
And the other one, though, I do have to highlight that is, you know, not just the family part. I have made these other three guys that I'm with, they're my brothers. Like, I will drop anything. If they need something, I'm there. He lives an hour away from me. I'll drive. If he needs something, I would. It's funny is I never had too many like the friends before, but now the friends that we have between the four of us is just, it's unreal. Like, we get our families together. It's not just us. It's our whole families are friends, and that's what's so much. I don't know. It's awesome. It's the community that we make in there. So,
yeah, the community within the community, right? You know, your personal. You know, most metal detectorists, I feel, are kind of introverted. I feel like they're kind of solo guys, and then once you find a couple good friends that you can go out and share with, you know, I feel like we're that type of people then where, you know, bonding is important. You know, people that go out by themselves and dig all the time, I don't see them as having any fun with it. I really don't. So, you know, we recreate our own community and then our own brotherhood, and now we've got a bigger brotherhood and a bigger one because we've got this platform that we can all talk to one another. And I think that's the amazing part. That's the reason why we're here today. And it definitely leads me right into the next question. And I think it's Gene's turn to go first. And if tomorrow, if you were going out detecting and you were picking up and taking a new detectorist with you, what would be the first piece of advice you would give him, and how would you help get him started in the right way to where he could fall in love with the hobby just like you?
It's kind of funny. Today while we were out, I had a guy. His name was Frankie. He came up to me. He was like, "Hey, I've been over here watching you. I just got some questions, you know." And everybody has the same kind of thoughts. You know, when you get into this, how much do you make? Do you ever find anything valuable? You know, and you know, if I was taking somebody for the very first time, which we've done over, you know, several different times, it just, you know, be ready to be putting in tons of work and not seeing a whole lot out of it. You know, you may go and not dig anything. Just don't give up. You know, that's kind of what I would say is the biggest thing, because I think so many people do, like where we were, you know, they didn't understand the machine, they didn't know what they were doing, and just kind of gave up. Yeah, the wrong area, that kind of thing. So, you know, if I was taking somebody with me, I'd try to teach them these things ahead of time, because again, we're relatively new to the hobby, so I would try to give them some of those pointers so they don't have to kind of wallow as long as we did in our ignorance. I guess is the best way to put it. So yeah, just don't give up, man. Just stick with it, and I promise it's going to be good. You know, again, you kind of have to know their personality if they're going to enjoy it, and then also do they enjoy history and that sort of thing. But yeah, don't give up. That's the biggest thing.
What do you say, Jerry?
So the people that I've taken out that for the very first time, I think that the big thing that they have to do is they have to have a nice level sweep. And then what I would encourage them to do, or what I would have them do before they even started detecting on the ground, I would actually throw coins on the ground, and I would have them sweep over it, and I would show them what they're listening for. They want a good repeating tone in every direction. And because if you give anybody a metal detector and go out there and they just start, sweeping back and forth, they're gonna hear tones. There ain't no doubt about it. They're gonna hear iron, they're going to hear mid-tones, they're going to hear high tones, and really training their ear to it as quickly as they can so they don't get frustrated is the most important thing. So throwing coins on the ground and having that detector bing, 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 bing as you go back and forth, so it registers in their brain, okay, this is what I need to listen to when I'm out there detecting, because like I said, they're going to hear tones. And when they hear a tone, that's when because we know to do it, we hone in on it and then we're trying to figure it out. Okay, is this a tone that I would dig? They say dig them all, but you don't necessarily dig them all, because you can get in the woods and you're going to hear all kinds of stuff. But hearing that repeating tone, if you can teach them that, then they're going to dig some stuff out of the ground.
Go ahead, Rich.
So I guess if I was taking someone out, if I was providing the detector, I'd give them something decent. It's really hard to, like, a lot of people, they want to go out and they want to, oh, I just got a bounty hunter, which I'm not against bounty hunters by no means. I'm just saying, like our old Radio Shacks that just had the little meter went like this, those are hard to use. And the biggest one, like Gene said, you can't be discouraged just because you can't figure it out. Like, every time it beeps, it's going to be something. You can't really discern on what it is, because it's really hard. Those are really hard to learn. Just taking your time with it. I actually just went camping Easter weekend. There was a guy I just happened to be walking my dogs, and I heard a beep beep, and I was like, oh, cool, someone's detecting somewhere. So, and I told him he couldn't actually detect there, but I was just letting him informational. But besides that, I talked to him. He goes, oh, I just picked this up, and it was a bounty hunter. It had just a little tiny meter going, and I just told him, I said, and I go, so what have you dug so far? Like, how have you done? And he said, so I've gotten a lot of, pull tabs and aluminum. And I said, well, don't get discouraged. And I told him, I said, I'm not going to say your detector's bad, but I am going to say that if you upgraded a detector, then you would end up being able to tell what things are. And, I proved it to him. I put the pull tab on the ground, and I threw a penny on the ground, and I threw a quarter on the ground. Now, the quarter was ringing up a little bit higher, but other than that, they all sounded the same. So it's really hard to pick out what you're going to pick out. Like, for us, we know when you're swinging, you're at least going to hear. I can tell you that it's something going to be. It's not going to be iron, or it's going to be a precious metal or silver or a quarter, or you're able to discern what those things are over time. But like for some of the cheaper detectors, it is very hard to do. And there are very good entry level detectors that are just a little bit more than those $100 ones that you got from the Discovery Channel or Harbor Freight, or however, that you can get a good detector actually for like $250 that actually gives you those VDI numbers, which is huge, because that's how you learn. I mean, there's a lot of tones that still sound the same even on ours. It's those VDI numbers that change our opinion on what we're digging. So taking your time, do not get discouraged. And the other one is, I always encourage them, if they are going to come out, get a pinpointer. It is a game changer. This guy didn't have one, and I was like, so you're having a hard time finding the stuff? He goes, yeah, I keep digging. And I go, pinpointers are everything. I mean, they don't tell you what it is, but it makes it a lot easier finding the piece that you're looking for. So yeah, we love talking to kids. Kids are our biggest one. When we go out detecting in yards, we end up having kids follow us. They're literally running from one hole to the next, like, to see what we're finding. Oh, what'd you get? And we normally give it to them, but they get so interested. And there's been so many times that the kids are so interested from us doing it in their yard that they have their parents want us to hook them up and find a good detector for them. And we normally get them a good entry level, but not too expensive. I mean, I'm not going to say go buy $1,000 detector because it's better. Well, if I just handed someone that had no idea what they were doing a $1,000 detector, they're going to have the same problem with a $100 detector, because they don't know what they're doing. So that entry level one helps you get into learning that, and you're not spending nearly as much. So
yeah, especially today, man. Those entry level detectors, like you said, there are some that are still entry level, but they're just so much better. They're user friendly. They're durable.
Simplex,
Yeah.
for example.
Simplex, Simplex is good. Even that new Xterra Pro from Minelab supposedly is awesome. I mean, I've heard so many good things about it already, and it's cheap. I think it's only like $250. I mean, that's a great entry level. And that's actually has better VDI than the Knox 800. I mean, it's just, for the price that you're getting it at, it's so amazing. And it's waterproof. Like, it's a perfect entry level. It's waterproof. It's multi-frequency. There's so many things for $250. It's really good. So
you found that entry level battleground between a couple of the detecting companies, because the best thing about that is that, and then I'll give you my answer, is that when you got two companies that are trying to create the best entry level detector, competition breeds. You can buy something for a better price, you can get a better piece of equipment, and then other people are going to start throwing away stuff because there's so many new detectors on the market. You can get something secondhand pretty dang cheap right now, and you can upgrade pretty easily. I know a lot of people that are letting go of their Equinox 6 and 800s just because they think that the new 7 and 9 are better, or they're upgrading to a Manicore. So there's a lot of stuff out there available. I love everybody's answers on that one. I will just elaborate and go just one step further. That positive reinforcement when you're on the hunt, making sure that person has a good time that day, regardless of what comes out of the ground. When Brian and I go hunting bee higgles, we have an absolute blast. It doesn't matter what we dig. It doesn't matter where we go. It doesn't matter, how bad the day can end up. We make sure that we have fun. And I think that positive reinforcement, if I was taking somebody out, I'd want them to have that same experience, because all things considered, at the end of the day, they may not have found treasure, which we find treasure maybe 15-20% of the time, but they had a bonding day, a growing day. They learned a little something, and hopefully that they want to go back and do it the next time.
It's like golf. Golf's expensive to start. You may not be good at it, but you have a blast going out for the day with the guys, and gotten out there for 18 holes. I don't golf, but I'm just saying it's the same type of thing. It's like, it doesn't really matter if you're good at it or not. You just have fun out there, and then they can pick on you for having a really bad swing. So
yeah, it really starts with that mindset in the beginning. Are you going into it to find value? Find lots of valuables, or are you going into it because you're trying to try something new, have fun with it? Your perspective is going to be a big determiner.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have that perspective that you're going in and you're going to find, oh my gosh, because that is like the question that people ask right away is, so what's your favorite find? How valuable is it? So it's hard to answer that question. What's your favorite find? I mean, honestly, well, what do you mean? Coin, relic, buttons? Like, there's so many categories. To me, I couldn't really tell you my favorite find. It's so hard to say. And then they're like, well, do you sell your stuff? I'm like, no. And they're like, well, why do you do it then? I'm like, well, because I really like sacred history, and I put it all into, like, I actually categorize it and label everything I find and where I found it, because it's just, to me, it's saving history, and it's so much better than just, and I don't find treasure all the time. Ask Jerry. I mean, they went out, they got 5 Drake bust large cents, between 3 large cents and 2 half cents. Ask him how much I got. Big old goose egg.
It wasn't
the whole
his day.
I literally came home with nothing, but I had so much fun watching them find stuff. And I did most of the filming that day, because it was just like one of those things. It was just like they kept finding stuff. I'm like, and I even say in the video, I'm like, well, maybe I'll get something one of these days. So like, it's just, sometimes it's discouraging, but like, I still had so much fun. It didn't matter if I found anything or not. It's the joy of being out there. So.
Yeah, I mean, that's where we've kind of worked our way up to getting somebody new out there and digging and stuff like that. But that same person decides 2 weeks later that that they're hooked, that they're into it. They're sitting out there and they call you up on the telephone. The next question is like, hey, how do I what do I do to start researching and finding my own sites? How can I find, get on the internet, or find good places to go hunt? And so, now the question really comes, Rich, what's your favorite research tool? What is your go-to when you're looking for a place to dig?
So I'm actually going to give this one to the guy next to me here.
Okay.
Jerry's going to take that one because he is the research guy, and I'm going to give it to him just because lately we've had a lot of emails coming through and a lot of people asking us, so how do you find all your sites? And we actually refer them back to one of our videos, because we did a video that was literally describing exactly what you do and how to do it and what sites we use and things like that. And Jerry, I'm going to let Jerry take it from there. Go.
Sure. So, I mean, the internet, if you want to find a spot in the woods, the internet is your best friend. You know, every county in America typically will have maps online that date back as far as typically to the mid to late 1800s. 1856 is about the earliest map that I can find. And I'm going to tell you, whoever was surveying for these maps did a phenomenal job, because a lot of them are very accurate. Very accurate. Now, it does take some practice, but transitioning from an 1860s map to a 1908 map and then to a modern day map can be difficult. And what I do is, once I find the map on my phone, I'll save the page, and then I have an app that I use. It's called Gaia GPS. That typically in our area will have a topographical map from 1908, and then just a Google map, or if you have an iPhone, a regular map on your iPhone. So what I do is I transition. I find that old dot next to the creek by this crossroad on the 1860s map. Then I go to my 1908 map, and I look for that creek, and I look for that crossroad, and I say, right across the street from that crossroad, there was a dot in 1860. Is it there now? In 1908, sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not. If it's there, then I keep going, closer to modern day. And then a lot of times I like the ones that are gone by like 1908, because those are the sites you get into. You dig absolutely every tone that you get is typically something good. So maps online, just Googling your township you live in, the county that you live in, and looking for those 1800s maps. We use a lot of Gaia GPS. That'll actually, if the home site is there in 1908, you can actually use it as a GPS and walk straight to the home site and get within like a 50-yard radius of that home site, or a 100-yard radius of that home site. And then it's just looking for the cellar hole or whatever. So once you locate it, then the next idea is, okay, who owns the property? I have some hunting apps that I use that actually will tell you who owns the property, where their address is. So just a couple weeks ago, we found a nice old site. Sean, the door knocker, he went, knocked on the guy's door, introduced himself. The guy brought him in, and he knew the history of the area, and he was all excited, and they BS for about an hour. He says, yeah, sure, go ahead. And it's cool because the woods, people don't typically care if you're out in the woods metal detecting their property. They don't care as much as if you're in their yard digging holes. So if you door knock somebody that has an old home site on their property, they're typically more than likely going to let you, look around in the woods and things like that. But that's how we find woods hunts. Now, I will say, I am not good at door knocking. And Rich and Sean, they can sell ice to an Eskimo, so to speak. They'll knock on a door, and they'll start a conversation with these people that I couldn't do. Like you said, a lot of metal detectors, they're introverts. That's me to a T. I'll go out in the woods all day long. I'll knock on somebody's door. I'll know somebody that owns a couple hundred acres. Hey, do you mind if I go out there? But they're awesome at just knocking on their door. They'll strike up a conversation about something on their porch, or maybe something in the yard, or whatever it is. They create a fast rapport with people, and they're like, oh yeah, we metal detect on the weekends, and this is why we're here, after 5-10 minutes of just talking to them about other stuff. And then they're like, yeah, go ahead. So, but those are the two big things on how we get our permissions.
I do have to piggyback on Jerry, is a lot of times he'll find sites, and then on iPhone, for some reason, you can't get there's an app that I have it does topical maps, which is really, really awesome. So he'll take old sites that he has, that he tells me to, and then I take the coordinates of it, and I'll literally see if I can see any
LiDAR.
depressions. Yeah, LiDAR, not topical.
Yeah.
LiDAR. And I'll see if there's any depressions left or anything like that, and I'll go, okay, hey, there's still a foundation there, or anything like that. So me and him kind of work really close on that part, like finding decent spots.
Because if you're gonna walk a mile back in, you want as much information as you can, because anybody that woods hunts, eight times out of 10, it's a bust. You go back in and there's nothing there, and or the place was strip mined or whatever. So we'll look up the map. Typically if it's 1860s, 1870s, it'll have a name beside, like who lived there. Our specific counties in our area, they actually had a book about the county, early settlers of the county and things like that. So we'll look up who lived there and see if we can find their names. If we can't, then I'll shoot the coordinates over to Rich and said, hey, see if there's any depressions in the ground around the spot. And then
we're not even looking for the depressions so much. We're looking for the old roads. If the old roads are still there, like if there's any track marks or any depression of a road at all, then that means the house probably it just may have been filled in. So the depression of the foundation may not be there, but the road's still there. So that means it wasn't strip mined. So, and as long as the roads are original to what the original map was, then they pretty much are still probably there.
Yeah, it's really cool that you guys actually work as a team to kind of hone in on a site. Hey, make sure, one of you kind of validates what the other thinks, and then, you work it out. And that's a great aspect of you guys being a group. You each have your strong points, and it makes the end result for the whole really a lot better, because you've got a lot better idea most of the time when you get out there to what you're doing. I don't know what you guys do on the island. Do you all do any research? Was that map that I sent you of your island one of the only research things that you guys do? Because you just kind of go to your plantation and go to the beach, right?
We're just going to say ditto to what Jerry said. We're at an unfair advantage, not a disadvantage.
It's really very different. There's a couple things you got to understand about the island. First of all, it's one of the larger islands in the chain. So when the Danish had it in the early 1700s, they said, okay, this is where we're going to have the factories. This is going to be the plantations, the farms, industrial. So there's a lot of farms, sugar mills, factories, everything was here.
Wow.
And since the island is only 21 miles long and 7 miles wide at its widest, pretty much the whole area was farms. So chances are, if you walk off in a random direction, you're going to find something. So, and the other good thing is, pretty much all of the old buildings are still standing. Like downtown, there's 2 towns, both of them, 90% of the buildings are 1750, and
that's what I mean. It's an unfair advantage.
Really, and so I mean, you're just driving down the road, plantation on your right, plantation on your left. There's a sugar mill, So we just go, and if we see a place, maybe we'll door knock. We don't do that as much, but I mean,
you should really start. I'd be in heaven up there. I'd be friends with everyone by now.
I would say we do our research, but for more of once we have a proper property, the way that we go about permissions is just who we know.
Yeah.
My dad was asking me about this where he lives just the other day. He's like, how in the world? I was like, people they know where something was, where an old house was, if it's on their farm. So just get to talking to that's the thing that I would say. First of all, talk to the people you know. And you're going to have your best chance of success at getting a permission. And then LiDAR is huge. Even properties where we know these old buildings are still standing. LiDAR shows us where there was a footpath or those sorts of things. And so LiDAR is huge. Like Jerry said, just if you have the internet, just start typing that stuff in, like, map of where I live, whatever county it is or whatever town. And you'll find old maps. That old map you sent is useful. It is, like he said, we can still drive by and like this map from 17 whatever 1800 is, oh yeah, the building was there and it's right there, so it's,
and one of the things is, again, small island, 50,000 people, everybody kind of knows everybody in a way.
We know everybody,
so it's pretty easy to find a place. One of the guys is just the uncle of one of our friends, and he has 250 acres, and there's 11 sets of ruins, and it's a big farm.
I know.
Farm.
It really is sickening.
It is, it is pretty bad.
Can't wait. I'll see you.
Oh no!
I'll see you next June.
Yeah, man. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, everybody, that's great information. Word of mouth is a great way. What they know about the area that you're at. You're on an island. It's kind of limited, so you guys you guys don't really need to use the stuff. The LiDAR helps you guys out. Two forms of LiDAR out there. The United States Geological Service has a great website. It's a little bit more defined, and Boyd's Maps. The LiDAR on there, it will get you in the right direction. Although I think that when you zoom in on it a little bit more, it gets a little blurry, kind of like they don't want you to have the perfect view. Those are two really good things. I heard Jerry mention earlier the hunting apps. I have OnX Hunt. I have it purchased and I use it for every state I go to. It's great. Also, GIS mapping gives you landowners, and some states have it, some states do not. Kentucky, where I live, does not have a good GIS, but Indiana does, and I do most of my digging in Indiana, so I can always find up-to-date landowners.
So you're Ohio River history, living in Kentucky, and you go digging in Indiana.
Yeah. Well, I'm on the Ohio River, though, man. The Ohio River runs all the way from these guys all the way out to, when you get out there by Cairo, Illinois. So it's a long way.
It starts here. Just remember that.
It does start there. But there's other forms of research that we do, and I can't even give you all the names, but the 1883 maps are around here. The Sanborn insurance maps are really good. There is a lot. The 1908 postal map is one of my favorites because in the area that we dig, it shows all the roads, and those roads, regardless, a lot of those are not there anymore. If you just follow those roads on the permissions and get the landowners, then you're going to find a ruin, an old cellar hole there. So that postal map is really nice. And it's really funny because my research mirrors what Jerry's talking about. I use the 1883 map, and then I go and I couple it with the 1908 postal for our area, and those are very common.
One of the things that we did when we were in the States is just know the history of the town you're in. So you go in the town, that house looks old, and the town dates back to 1894, whatever. It's probably pretty old. And that's one thing. A lot of times you can just see, and that yard may have some old stuff in it, And yard hunting is a little different, but that's one easy way to do it.
Most metal detectors high tone them and then they leave. That's why we are always, you're always looking for scrap high tones and yards that have been detected and so on and so forth. You're usually fighting through the mid tones. It just is the way that it is. We've made it through a great portion of this today, and now we're going to end it with one last big hurrah and something fun. It's the question that I wanted to ask everybody, and you can use your imagination, bring it up. I don't care what kind of answer is. There's no wrong answers. But let's see. Let's let Jerry start on the last one, even though Rich passed. Where is your dream hunting spot? Where is a place that you just know would be your ideal place to hunt?
That's funny because my wife was behind the camera saying Europe because she wants to go. If I go to Europe, she's going. That's what she keeps telling me. So I would say Europe. I mean, they dig coppers out there like they're wheat cents around here, and going out over there would be a dream. Anywhere in Europe, I think, would be my dream. So,
go ahead, Rich.
We literally have been talking about this lately. Is we want to plan a trip. I mean, that's our thing. Is we want to see if possible. And Bethany, if you're still listening, Jen wants to go too. So, yeah. So, so it's going to be a group family hunt. We're the women just have to know that we're going to be detecting almost the whole time.
We're okay.
So, Europe would be awesome. Anywhere over there, just awesome. It would just be fun to do. I mean, even if I don't find anything, just the experience of going over there would be great. So,
absolutely, Gene.
What about you, Seth? What do you think first? We'll all answer if that's okay.
Yeah,
it's fine.
All right, what you got?
I don't know.
If you could go any kind of like treasure hunting, where would you go?
I'm thinking of a place, but I can't remember the name.
I would think, Europe is really cool, but also Eastern, Europe, like almost like the Middle East area as well. That's the Roman kind of Italy and all of that, even a little more east than that. I mean, simple. That's kind of where everything started. So imagine if you could find some really old artifacts there. That would be awesome.
What is it, Seth?
Wherever that one guy was that took up all the school points.
He's in UK.
Oh, Terry.
Britain.
Yeah.
So England. Seth is saying England as well. He'd like to go treasure hunting, and he would do mudlarking there, I'm sure.
Oh,
just
Sci guy or Sci finds or whatever it is, man.
Yep,
That guy's
sight
awesome.
lines, man. Yeah. I mean, I was thinking before Gene answered, I was really thinking like Jerusalem, that whole area right there. Again, Roman, dating back. I mean, their roads are still around from a couple thousand years ago. And I know there's no way that could ever happen. If you're talking a site that we know we could dig, it would have to be Europe. Like somewhere over there. Again, for kind of the brotherhood part of metal detecting, because we have friends over there, the metal detecting channel and Tyson Fury, these people over there that are metal detecting, and they watch our videos, they're invested in our life. So I mean, really, on a personal note, that's probably where it would be.
Gosh, I can't argue with that. I think I think following, listen, especially the England and the Ireland area where you can follow, you can follow the Roman Empire, you can follow all the Celtic stuff from way back in, the Middle Ages, the beginning of all of that, early 1900s, the early, right, just after Jesus died, that type of stuff, that time.
Yeah.
The early AD is what I was going for. That seems like that would be probably the Shangri-La. On another note, I think that I would like to try some of the area in China just because, of how it's kind of been. It's not been influenced by other countries, right? Their history is their history, and nobody else has really invaded there or put their mark into their country. It's basically their traditions over and over and over again. So just to see what they lost, 600 years ago would be amazing as well. I think that just, something that you don't think about is that, because Asian culture has been around probably just as long. So I think that'd be another good one. I could go anywhere and dig. You can send, I'm sure, anywhere on the coast of Africa or, just I can imagine finding something everywhere I go.
Yeah.
And I'm going to knock this down and conclude today this overall with this right now. And these guys that took the time out, hopefully this works out really for everybody. But I want to thank each and every one of you for spending an hour with me tonight. And hopefully this ends up being something that works out.
Thank you so much for having us on, man. We really appreciate it. It was, great to just hang out and talk, and nice to meet the PA Relic Hunters. We love their channel, and look forward to doing this again sometime.
Thanks.
Same here.
And same here. It's nice meeting you too, actually, because I've talked to Shane many, many times, and it's good to meet you too, Gene. So, and Gene and Seth.
New brotherhoods, right?